Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? I just go where the trade wind blows. Na 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 no. I suppose. Every time you hear the sound, every time you hear the sound, every time you hear the sound, the sound, the sound. I just came from the loft and I recovered these. Remember these? Some of you are old enough to remember these. Thermionic valves, vacuum tubes, as some people call them. Yeah? Gates, switches. These are the things that made it possible for amplifiers to work back in the olden days. We came up with these, you know, in almost all electronic things had these glowing bulb-like things in the back. And again, it's interesting that the youngsters nowadays have no idea what this is. Can you see this? Look at this. The mighty, mighty KT88 beam tetrode, or kinkless tetrode, which is what the KT stands for. And power amps back in our days, in the sound system days, had rows and rows of these KT88s in push-pull configuration, yeah? Bellowing out hundreds of watts per channel. And it, you know, gave a nice little light show as they glowed in the dark. Every time we hear the sound, the sound, the sound, you know, great memories. And these valves, these tubes, had a distinct sound to them. They gave a distinct sound. And you could always tell from outside the dance, you know, if the sound that was playing inside the dance was using valves, or if they were using transistor. And it's kind of hard to explain now. But I remember back in the days being outside Brixton Town Hall, and we could always tell, you know, who was playing. You know, the sound was, it was like a magical experience back then, you know, being a youngster coming up, you know, and sometimes we couldn't necessarily afford to get in, so we'd have to wait towards the end because they'd lower the price. But it was like a magical experience if you could get in there and watch those guys, the sound guys, stringing up. You know, it was like magic. It was an art, and I would always, you know, try and get there early, so I could watch them string up the sound. You know, they'd put their amps together and their preamps together, and in those days everything was homemade. Amps, speakers, you know, the case that they put the amps in, the amp case, everything was homemade in those days. And of course, so therefore you had a homemade sound and a homemade look. Having said that, they were like master craftsmen who would cut the boxes. You know, they'd get a jigsaw and cut out the holes for the 18-inch woofers. And it'd be round. You know, you wouldn't be able to see no wobble. It'd be round. And each speaker box, each sound system's boxes had a unique flavor. It was a unique look. Not like nowadays where, you know, everything's custom made, so everything looks the same. Back in those days, everything was tailor-made, custom made. Speaker boxes, amps, you know. I think the only thing they didn't make was the turntable. Speaker boxes were in sections. You'd have the bass, woofers, 4 faces and double boxes. And on top of that, you'd have the separate mid-range 12-inch with the cone in the middle, the speaker cone, so that the vocals would cut. And sometimes you had the iron horn for mid-range as well. And on top of that, they'd throw tweeter boxes. You don't even see tweeter boxes no more. Arrays of tiny little plastic speakers that would only reproduce the high frequency sound. And I remember in those days, the valve sounds that were running the banks of KT-88s, kinkless pentodes, tetrodes, kinkless tetrodes, the sounds that were running them had to warm up their valves for like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes before they could really start kicking. So you'd be at the dance and all you'd hear was tops as they warmed up, and you had to be patient and wait. Oh, come on, when are they gonna drop this beeline now? And then after the valves warmed up, they would slowly ease it in. You had to slowly ease that nice deep round bottom line would come in. It was an art then. Everything was like an art that you had to learn on the job. Yeah? And these amps, I mean, based upon the size of this, you can imagine how huge they were. Some huge, massive carbuncles of things that two men had to struggle to lift in. And I remember Coxsone Sound used to run 3 of those amps, 3 or 4 of them. And they used to stack them up on top of one another. And they used to get hot. You know, if you got too close, you could burn yourself. But it was all about the sound. From the time we hear the sound. From the time we hear the sound. The sound. It was all about the sound and the quality of the sound. So they'd put the record on and the vinyl would spin on the deck. This is a lost art we're talking about. We're losing this. The vinyl would spin and they'd put the ceramic or the magnetic needle, because you had to have the right one. If you had the wrong cartridge on, there'd be a mismatch. So they'd put the needle on and you'd hear the crackle at the beginning, which all adds to the experience of the live sound. And that signal would go from the turntable, it would go into a preamplifier with all the tone controls on. And they'd be busy fixing up the tone and the sound, you know. You'd have the mid-range and the high frequency, and sometimes they even had graphic equalizers, you know, and they'd play around like scientists at jammies, you know, and they'd be doing this live. Parametric EQ. And all this was going on live. It was all about the sound and getting a particular sound, which was really important. It was your identity. Your sound was your identity. And we all came up, as I said a few times before, we all came up in a sound system. We all had a sound system. And it was like a quest for the correct sound, for your own signature, if you like. So you went through years of on-the-job training, years of trial and error, trying this piece of gear, trying that piece of gear, hearing that somebody over Dessau could build you an amp. Someone over here had a different one. And it was years of trial and error. Swapping out speakers, was it Goodman's? We'd swap them for Fane, or we'd swap them for Gauss, you know? And each sound swore by a particular brand, which gave them the sound that they were after. The sound, it was all about the sound. And as I said, even wiring up, because in those days, speaker boxes didn't have a plug-in connection, XLR, which they have now. In those days, the wire just used to hang out the back. And you used to see man go around there and twist the wire to get that, pull off, bite off, you know, the insulation with his teeth and twist on. And it's like an art, man. I remember seeing them doing that and going behind the speaker box to look, and you see man look on you like, what I do around here? As a little youngster, you know, but he was just really excited to see it. But it was like a little art, and only certain man knew how to do it. And if you didn't know, you didn't know. And you could only learn by being in the sound. But you had to wire up the speakers so that they kicked in phase. And if you didn't put them in phase, then they counteracted each other and you didn't get the right bass response. It was like going to university for us. The sound system era. The quest for the perfect sound. And some sounds had good tops, crystal clear, coming out those horns. And some sounds had the round bass or the rugged bass, but they didn't have no mid-range. So it was just, and you couldn't hear the vocals. But the best sounds had crisp tops, crystal clear tops, mid-range vocals that cut through the air, and bass that just sit down solid. And there's very few sounds got it right over the years. Very, very few. But some did get it right. And those sounds, it was a joy to listen to, and you could listen to them all night long. From the time me hear the sound, from the time me hear the sound, the sound, the sound, the sound. It was all about the sound. Yeah. On the job training, man. No one taught us. There weren't no books, there was no internet back then. We just had to do what we had to do. So we give thanks. We give thanks to the KT88, the humble thermionic valve that produces such a wonderful sound. But slowly transistors took over, the trannies took over, and at first they didn't sound so great, but then they started getting good, and then you started getting businesses that would custom make amps and preamps, and you could order them, and everything changed. Everything changed. You had S&R. There was a place called S&R down in Deptford. I think that's where we got our first amps from. And you had Chewak and Barracuda, and different people started popping up, offering custom-made slave amps, preamps, and all the stuff that we used. And slowly the sounds started to sound the same. No more could you tell who was playing outside. No more could you tell, the difference between them. The sounds became the same. So it wasn't like that element where you'd go to an event and you go and look to see what equipment people were using. Slowly that phased out because everybody started using the same kind of stuff. And the quality was good. The quality is good. I mean, even now, who knows what amps people use? Who knows what equipment? Is it important anymore? It's all about the sound, not necessarily the equipment. So in a sense it's good because the quality generally over the broad range of sounds improved, but the individuality has kind of been lost somewhere along the line. Yeah, man, the good old days. But you know what? One of the most overlooked pieces of gear in the sound system era, one of the most overlooked, is this. The humble microphone. Yeah? The humble microphone. And I remember back in the days, I mean, this is actually one of the first mics we used to use on our sound back in the day. Yeah? It's one of the first ones. We had others. And in those days, what we used to do is people tended to just use whatever mic they could get their hands on. And the mics, because the DJs, used to just a choo 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 choo, So it wasn't really that important, the microphone, because they weren't really saying anything too tough anyway. Cha 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 cha, salagadadag, and just making up stuff. But as time went on, the mics had to step up too. You know, the cheap, nasty ice cream cones that we started with started to make way for things like this, which is a Shure 515 SD. Yeah, started to have to use proper things. Can you see that? Look at that, olden day, old school Shure. Yeah, nice DJ mic. I like these mics. Flat top, pun top. Yeah, dynamic, XLR connection in the back. Yeah, nice and sturdy. You can hold it, and you notice how MCs don't know how MCs don't really know how to hold the mic. They hold the mic wrong, but it's all about style. So some man would hold the mic like this. Some man would hold a ball at the top. Na 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 na. Salagadada. Changes the whole dynamic of the sound doing that, but it's style. Some would press the top right up to their mouth. And then I used to hate that because when they passed the mic to you, it was full of, you had to shake out all the saliva that was being caught in the top. But yeah, the microphone, the humble microphone, very overlooked, but very important, you know, to capture the right sound to start with, to take you through the system and out the speakers. So when we stepped up, the humble microphones, here they are. The branded mics started to take place, started to take over. This one, the Audio Technica, is another one from the olden days. I actually got this one in Brixton Exchange Mart. Back in the day, I was actually after a Shure 58, which is a classic of a microphone. That's the one with the round ball on the top, the round, you know, dome on the top. The Shure 58. There was also a Shure 57, which kind of looked like this, which was its brother, that I really loved. But they were really expensive. They sounded really great, but they were really expensive. But the name brand mics, as I said, I got this from Brixton Exchange Mart. I wanted the 58, and I was assured that this Audio Technica Midnight Blues 3000L was just as good. And to be honest, it is a great microphone. Nice weight to it. Na 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 na. Every time I hear the sound. And this one is coming straight from your head, straight direct to your pineal gland. Zoom. Yeah, stuff like that. What else have we got? We got this one here. What have we got? This one here. This is this microphone here is the one that I use in video when I'm doing interviews. You've got to keep it nice and clean, nice and clear. As you can see, this one's really scuffed up and nasty from years of use. So this one stays in its case so that when it is caught on video, you don't see all them nasty scratches. And holding the mic is important. So it's about a flex of the wrist. You ask the question. So, Prime Minister, could you tell us what your plans are for the future of the communities that are suffering, feeling the sufferation at the hands of Brexit? Yeah? So it's about a flick of the wrist, like that. Proper mic management, proper mic handling. What else have we got down here? We got, the condenser. The condenser microphone. This one is my video top mic. This goes on the top of my video cams that I showed you a couple weeks back. NTG, the Rode NTG2. Very good directional shotgun mic. Beautiful piece of equipment, engineered beautifully. It's like a work of art when you look at it. But this microphone here is so crisp and sharp. It comes with a windjammer with the Rode written on it, which I don't really like too much, but hey, it does its job. And again, sometimes I see people doing interviews with these, but I don't like to see the writing on the side. You know, that's not cool. So what you do is you swap that out and you put a dead cat, furry dead cat on the top, windjammer, and that kind of looks a bit better, doesn't it? although it is a bit much, you know what I mean? But very good mic systems. Very good mic systems, okay? And the point of all this is, audio is so important. The sound aspect is so important. It's more important than the actual video, because people can watch. Oops, there goes the dead cat. People can watch a bad video with, you know, crackles all over the screen a lot longer than they can listen to one with bad audio with all over it. Yeah. So the mic sound nice. Check one. It's got to sound nice. Check one. What I'm actually using to do these videos is a wireless mic, which I've got down here. Let me show you. This is Rode wireless link. Rode link. Can you see that? And these are brilliant things. You know, the range is pretty far, about, I don't know, about 100 yards, I reckon. And very crystal clear. Without it, it just makes what you're doing look and sound amateur. So, you know, you've got your little lav up here. You can probably, well, you probably can't see it, it's just underneath. Pickup is perfect. So, yeah. Sound. From the time me hear the sound. From the time me hear the sound. This is another alternative, which I don't really use that much no more. The Zoom H4n. You can record your sound separately and sync it, and sync it, and sync it. Sync it with the video later afterwards, but it's extra work. But it's a good little recording device, and it records for hours and hours. You put the battery in, and yeah, it does the work. So it's all about the sound today, you know, the sound traveling at 1,120 feet per second, the speed of sound matching the speed of thought to take us. Whoa, some mad wind going on outside there. The elements are trying to get in. Every time I hear the sound, every time I hear the sound, every time I hear the sound of the wind. Who knows, who knows, who knows, who knows? We just go where the trade wind blows. Na 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 na, I know, me no know.